to be educated, but I'm so frustrated.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Music Mindset channel. First of all, I want to say thanks to all of the subscribers and the members on this channel who help support this channel and keep it going. And those of you who keep watching the videos, I really appreciate that. Tonight, we're going to get into somebody who's special. You know, every hit song has a secret weapon, and the secret weapon for Motown was a bass player. I know you've heard his music, even if you don't know his name. This dude played on countless hits, basically everything that Motown did. Played on more #1 hits than Elvis and the Beatles. Yep. The thing is, he doesn't get the credit that he deserves, and that's what we're going to do tonight. Give him a little bit of credit. He's gone now, but his music and what he did on those songs is still around and ain't going nowhere. His name is James Jamerson, the great James Jamerson. If you don't know anything about that, hang around for a minute and you'll find out just why Motown was as good as it was. The greatest bass line ever recorded was played by a man laying flat on his back on the floor, too drunk to sit on the stool without falling off. That man was James Jamerson. He was the architect of a sound that defined a generation. I need love to ease my... Yet for years, he remained entirely anonymous. We're talking about James Jamerson. This is the definitive story of the genius who built the House of Motown, changed bass forever, and lived a life full of highs, lows, and uncredited brilliance. James Lee Jamerson was born the 29th of January 1936 in Charleston, South Carolina. Life didn't hand him a smooth ride. His parents split early, and he was raised by his grandmother and aunt, women who taught him the gospel and blues that would form the foundation of his groove. At age 10, a serious bicycle accident left him temporarily in a wheelchair, and even after he recovered, he walked with a slight limp. That shadow of self-consciousness never fully left him, but it fueled the depth of his music. By 1954, James moved with his mother to Detroit. At Northwestern High School, he stumbled into the instrument that would define him, the upright bass. He soaked in jazz masters like Ray Brown and Paul Chambers, and it showed. He was so good, the Detroit police gave him a special permit to play in clubs that served liquor even as a teenager. They knew when James was on the bass, the music was worth the trouble. His professional journey began in those smoky clubs, joining his first real band led by the legendary blues singer Washboard Willie and the Super Suds of Rhythm. Around 1956, this is also where he began drinking heavily. Fast forward to the early 1960s. Jamerson was hired as a session musician at Motown, part of a rotating crew that became the Funk Brothers. They recorded in Hitsville, USA's basement, nicknamed the Snake Pit, a place hot with sweat, smoke, and the grind of endless sessions. His instrument of choice? A 1962 Fender Precision bass he called the Funk Machine. This was a specific sunburst finish P bass, and that instrument was sacred. He strung it with heavy, flat-wound strings and rarely replaced them. His philosophy: the gunk keeps the funk. His right hand plucked with a single index finger, a technique so powerful and unique it earned him the legendary nickname, the Hook. And while every other session player followed charts, Motown producers trusted him to improvise on the spot. That's right, James was composing in real time for hits that would define generations. Jamerson didn't just play bass, he reinvented it. Before him, the electric bass was a background instrument. He turned it into a co-lead melody, weaving chromatic runs, syncopated rhythms, and passing tones through every track. This is why he is the gold standard. Between 1963 and 1968, Jamerson played on nearly every Motown hit. He racked up 23 #1 pop hits and 56 #1 R&B hits. To give you perspective, he held the record for the most #1 hits played by a musician until it was eventually surpassed by Paul McCartney. McCartney himself later admitted that Jamerson was his biggest bass influence. You know his work even if you don't know his name. Listen to the impossible, driving counter melody in You Can't Hurry Love by the Supremes. I need love to ease my... Listen to the perfect, patient sadness of My Girl by the Temptations.
I've got sunshine.
And listen closely to the Temptations' 1969 hit, Cloud 9. There's a famous move from F to A flat in the bass line that is so jarringly brilliant, bassists still debate it. With Jamerson, the line between genius and mistake was non-existent. He often composed his parts so quickly he barely remembered them. He reportedly despised the rhythm of the Four Tops' "Reach Out, I'll Be There," played the line in frustration, and was shocked when it became a massive global hit. Oh man, what was I thinking? You can't talk about James Jamerson without talking about the bass line he did in the song Get Ready by the Temptations. That is pretty much his most iconic performance for most, and yet for years he remained completely anonymous, uncredited. The official session sheets, if they existed at all, were locked away, and this anonymity led to his true tragedy. Jamerson was paid $1,000 per week during the Motown era, an excellent wage for a session musician, but he received absolutely no publishing royalties. The man who supplied the fundamental bass lines for a global empire never saw a dime beyond his session fee for the billions in sales his grooves generated. The highs were dizzying, the lows devastating. And then you have the time when Motown made the critical decision to move its operations from Detroit to Los Angeles in the early 1970s. The city of Detroit's heart broke, and Jamerson's career fractured. He was deeply attached to the specific acoustics of the Detroit studio. He had this thing where he refused to plug his bass directly into the mixing board, insisting his signal run through his old Ampeg Portaflex B15 amp and be mic'd up. But that was a practice that studios in LA were moving away from. He and his wife, Annie Jamerson, reluctantly followed Motown to California, but the culture had changed. Producers favored simpler grooves. Jamerson's complex, signature style was sidelined. And then came the ultimate blow. The funk machine was stolen during a break-in at his Los Angeles home. The bass that carried his soul was gone. He never replaced it fully, and he never sounded the same. The alcohol use that started when he was young, it only seemed to get worse and became a shadow that followed him for many years. Yet, even in his darkest moments, his genius shone. The story goes, Marvin Gaye knew exactly who he needed for his masterpiece, What's Going On. Marvin had to go find James, who was out at a spot somewhere already heavily intoxicated. Gaye tried to persuade Jamerson to come with him to the studio. Jamerson kept saying no, but he deeply respected Marvin and eventually just gave in. But he was blasted. He was so drunk that he didn't even try to sit on the studio stool, afraid he'd fall off. And if you know the story, he laid down flat on the floor, using the cold concrete to steady himself. And from that position, that man delivered a flawless, weeping, iconic bass line.
Bring some understanding, head to head.
But that is the paradox of Jamerson. Brilliance born from chaos. But everything born has an expiration date. And tragically, James Jamerson's date was the 2nd of August, 1983. He passed away at just 47 years old due to complications from cirrhosis, heart failure, and pneumonia. A man who gave the world its rhythm left with only the fraction of wealth he deserved and the sorrow of uncredited work. It wasn't until Standing in the Shadows of Motown, the book and later the film, that the world finally learned his name. In 2000, he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, a long overdue honor for the man who created immortality one groove at a time. Here's the music mindset takeaway. Jamerson didn't chase fame, he chased mastery. He didn't play for credit, he played to get that feeling, for sound, groove, and truth. His lines are lessons in focus, discipline, and commitment. Every time you hear a Motown track, the pulse, the heartbeat, that's James Jamerson commanding resurrection through his craft. Whether you know or not, what he created is most likely embedded somewhere in your music mindset. Yeah, man, that story was a mouthful. James Jamerson, to me, he's a hero to the bass player. He doesn't do a whole lot of that slapping stuff because that really didn't get popular until Larry Graham brought that into the picture. But what he did on that bass line, you hear a lot of pop songs still using that type of bumpity bump bass lines, you know what I mean? And this was just a story that you had to hear. If you already knew this stuff, then it just reinforced it. If you didn't know it, now you know who the person was who made those songs so great. Yeah, the drummer did their thing, the piano, guitar, horns, and all of those. But this guy, James Jamerson, he laid down some stuff that we're never going to forget about. And I hope you appreciate that on the Music Mindset channel. And I'm going to check you guys out next time. Make sure you're here when we come back. Thanks.